All right, welcome back. This week, we are talking all about spills. And no, I don't mean spilling your morning coffee all over your desk, though that's bad too. We're talking about something way messier: data. The breaches, the leaks, the disclosures that seem to be happening literally all the time. So let's just get right into this week's update.
Okay, so here's the game plan for today. We're going to kick things off with a massive data flood. Then we'll check out some spills in some pretty high places. After that, we'll see what's being done to contain the mess and what the next wave of spills looks like. Of course, we'll cover how you can patch up your own leaks, and we'll wrap up with a really wild story about people betting on secrets. Let's go. All right, first up, the Great Data Flood. And when I say tidal wave, I mean it. The scale of this first one is just, wow. It's almost hard to wrap your head around. Just look at that number, 8.7 billion. That is how many records from people and companies in China were just found sitting out in the open in one totally unsecured database. To put that in perspective, that's more records than there are people on the entire planet. Absolutely staggering.
And, this wasn't just useless junk data either. Oh no. We're talking the good stuff, the real crown jewels: national ID numbers, passwords, social media IDs, the whole shebang. And the craziest part? This gold mine for hackers was just sitting there, totally exposed on the public internet for over 3 weeks. Anyone who knew where to look could have just walked in and taken it all. So that massive breach is obviously one kind of spill, right? A total catastrophe. But they really do come in all shapes and sizes. And they affect everyone, from you and me scrolling Instagram to the folks buying the most expensive luxury goods out there. You ever get one of those weird out-of-the-blue password reset emails from Instagram? Well, this might be why. It turns out that data for something like 17.5 million users, we're talking usernames, contact details, is still being passed around on underground forums. Now, Meta says their systems weren't breached. And okay, fair enough, but that doesn't really matter to the people whose info is out there, does it? It just makes them a huge target for phishing attacks and all sorts of scams. And believe me, these spills can get expensive. Just ask Louis Vuitton, Dior, and Tiffany. South Korea just hit them with a combined, $25 million in fines for some pretty big security screw-ups. And you want to know how it happened? The causes were surprisingly simple, almost old school. A hacked employee device, a voice phishing attack. It just goes to show it doesn't matter how fancy the brand is, they can be just as vulnerable as anyone else. Okay, so with all this data spilling everywhere, the big question is, what's anyone doing about it? Let's take a look at the attempts to mop up this digital mess. Now, this is interesting because it's actually a proactive move, which you don't see very often. The European Parliament basically said, hold on a second, and disabled all the new AI features on their work devices. Why? Because they couldn't get a solid guarantee that the data would be secure once it gets sent up to the cloud. I mean, that's a pretty big deal, choosing security over shiny new toys. And on the flip side, for cleaning up spills after they've already happened, Google's actually made something a little easier. So if an explicit image of you ever shows up in their search results, there's now a much more direct way to ask for it to be taken down. You just follow these steps. And the best part, really, is that they've added a central hub where you can track your request. So at least it doesn't feel like you're just shouting into the void. So, we tend to think of spills as these big, dramatic database hacks. But that's not the whole story anymore. The next wave is, well, it's a lot sneakier. It's more about the data we actually give away ourselves, our private conversations, what we're thinking about buying, even who we are. And that brings us to the big question with all these new AI chatbots, doesn't it? Are your private chats just fuel for a brand new advertising machine? I mean, they're everywhere now, right? In search, in your apps. Are they here to help you? Or are they just a ridiculously smart new way to figure out what you'll buy next? And this right here is a perfect example of that. It's a classic watch their hands, not their mouth situation. Google says we have no plans to show ads inside our Gemini chatbot. And technically, that's true. They don't. But what they are doing is taking what you chat about with the AI and using that to show you ads on the regular Google search page. So you're basically just handing them a perfect, detailed profile of your interests on a silver platter. And speaking of spilling things we didn't mean to, how about this? Meta is planning to let its Ray-Ban smart glasses literally identify people in real time. It's a feature they're calling name tag. Just think about that. Someone could just look at you and the glasses would tell them who you are. It's a privacy nightmare, plain and simple.
Then you've got this lawsuit against Lenovo. There's a class action suit alleging that trackers on their website are basically creating this hidden data pipeline straight to China. And they're not just collecting a little bit of data, we're talking IP addresses, device IDs, the full web addresses you visit. The big worry here is that this kind of information could be used to build profiles on sensitive people, journalists, politicians, activists.
Okay, I know, hearing all this can feel pretty overwhelming, like there's nothing you can do. But that's not true. There are absolutely things you can do to control your own data. So, let's talk about patching your own leaks.
So here's a quick personal security checklist for you. 3 simple things that make a huge difference. First, update your old software. Seriously, a huge flaw was just found in WinRAR and millions of people are exposed just because that app doesn't update itself. Second, be really careful about new browser extensions you install. A recent study found hundreds of malicious AI-themed Chrome extensions that are just designed to steal your stuff. And third, patch your OS. Apple just fixed a bug in iOS that's been around for a decade and was being actively used by spyware companies. It sounds boring, but this basic stuff is your best line of defense.
All right, let's wrap up with a story that really twists the whole idea of a spill on its head. It gets complicated. What if spilling a secret could actually be a way to get to the truth? It sounds weird, I know. Let's get into it.
Okay, so first, what is a prediction market? The easiest way to think about it is like a stock market, but instead of betting on companies, you're betting on future events. People put down real money on whether something will or won't happen, and the stock price basically shows what the crowd thinks is most likely.
So with that in mind, get this. A group of Israeli army reservists were just arrested. Why? They allegedly took classified military intelligence, we're talking top secret stuff, and used it to place bets on one of these prediction markets. They basically used a massive national security leak as insider trading info to win over 150 grand. Okay, so let's be super clear. What they did was totally illegal, no question. But here's where it gets really interesting. The people who run these markets, they have this provocative argument. They say that when people have to put their own money on the line, they're forced to be accurate. It filters out all the noise and makes the market a truth-producing mechanism. Which leaves us with a really challenging final thought. In this weird new world, could a spill sometimes be more than just a leak? Could it be a leak of the truth itself? Something to chew on. Thanks for tuning in.